It's your boy Jay Lee.
It's your boy Junior Scott.
And welcome back to week 2, episode 2 of Minds of the Mud. And this week, my word is simple, right? You must do the things today that others don't want to do, so tomorrow you'll have things that others won't have. The word is simple. Get out here and get after it. Whatever your lane is, whatever it is that you want to do in this life, you got to get after it now. Like, don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till the next day. Don't put it off till next Sunday. I'm going to start next Sunday. Get after it today, right? Take some progressive steps toward what you want in this life today. And that's my word. Like, I just want to empower you. Get after it. Get after it.
And to piggyback off my brother, I'm going to take a quote from his book. If you haven't got it, it's available. Link is in the bio. But the quote here, it reads, Remain present and intentional to control and conquer your thoughts, because those thoughts can and will manifest and become real things. Right? And I think basically it just piggybacks off what he says. Like, control, be intentional. Be very intentional and live your life with the purpose and on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's my word.
So, I mean, without further ado, we're going to get into our interview, right? So our guest today is the legend, the myth, Anthony Douglas. He has been a mentor in our lives for 10 plus 15 years almost. It started way back when we were in BLT, Black Leaders of Tomorrow. And we're just thankful for him, and we want to bring him on because he's a wealth of knowledge. And we think that his perspective can help you build your perspective. So we want to have him on today. You got anything, brother?
Man, without further ado, Mr. Anthony Douglas.
So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Like we just stated before, we got the legend in the house today. The legend, right? Mr. AD, Mr. Anthony Douglas. First and foremost, we want to say thank you. Right? Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Thank you for gracing the community with your presence. And today we just want to delve in. We want to dive in. We want to know your story. And we really want to leave the people with some tangible gems, some tangible takeaways that they can apply to their lives and really get out here and do the work in our community.
All right.
So,
well, first of all, man, I want to thank you young man. It is truly an honor for me because I knew y'all win.
Yeah.
And seeing the type of young man that you are now, I mean, I know that when I leave this earth, I know I left it in some awesome hands. So
appreciate
I
Appreciate that.
want y'all to know that. Yeah, I watched the last podcast and man, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Mike Stuckey, man.
Yeah, shout out to Mike Stuckey for
Yeah,
sure.
I know his dad, and he's a good young man. So I'm happy. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, one thing, how we kind of talked about, we want to start off our episode just by asking you where you come from, where you currently are now, and where you plan to go.
Well, I would say that my beginnings were very, very humble beginnings. I was raised by a single mother, very, very young. By the age of 20, my mother had 4 boys. And I had a grandfather who was a minister at the time, and my grandmother. So it was tough for us. I had 3 other siblings, all different fathers. So it was tough. My mother at an early age, I can remember as a young kid, probably no more than probably 4 or 5, my mother suffered a nervous breakdown. So I can remember as a young kid living with our grandparents. My mother was always afraid of the dark. So as a young man, she would, as being a young kid, she would come wake us up, and she had to either go to the restroom or she had to go somewhere in the house. So while we were asleep, she would come and wake us up, and we would have to escort her through the house to do whatever she had to do. Be it she had to go to the restroom, we had to go there, make sure she was okay. And then after she was done, we would take her to bed and put her to bed, and then we would go to bed. Okay, So,
Where's your mother from?
South Bend.
South
Born in Arkansas,
Arkansas. Okay.
Blytheville, Arkansas. That's where most of my grandparents hailed from. So, as a young kid, there was no childhood. There really wasn't a childhood because we had responsibilities. Learning how to cook, 5 years old, it was nothing for us to get up to the stove and cook a meal or cook a breakfast for ourselves. So that was it. My oldest brother, who's passed on, his dad, he and I were supposed to have the same father.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew as a young man that he wasn't.
Right.
By how he treated me.
Mm-hmm.
So as I talk about young kids know how adults feel about them at a young age.
Yeah.
So I grew up with my grandfather being my father. Okay, so it was.
And this was your mom's dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mother's dad. He was born 1899.
Damn.
Yeah. And he died in 72, and not necessarily 72, 71. I was 9 years old when he passed. But I was his guy.
Okay.
When he went to church, I went to church with him, and he took ill, had a massive stroke, and died before I turned 10 years old. And at that point, that's when I became a very lost young man because I didn't have that father figure. He was dad to me. So I had challenges.
Yeah.
I had challenges, and I know I'll probably skipping around a little bit, but one of the things I did as a young man, I prayed, and I asked God. I said, feeling the way I felt, being fatherless, not knowing, questioning manhood. I just prayed to God. I said, man, one day if you allow me to be a father, I'm gonna be the best father I could be. And yeah, that's been a blessing.
Now you said you prayed. Was your family a church-going family, or did you kind of?
We were raised up in the church. It was that within itself was challenging too, because there was four of us. We were a year apart, and I can remember going to church, and my mother was sung in the choir. We would sit on the pew, the four of us, and you can hear women talk about us, and they would say, "Oh, those Louise kids, they're not gonna amount to anything. They're not gonna amount to anything." And I can remember that, hearing that as a young man. And later on, as I went through high school, I went to school with some of those young ladies' sons, and realized, like, okay, I mean, man, you had everything. You had your dad, you had your mom, but you're not doing anything with your life. For me, I lived in the projects, and it was a big family. But the thing is that I lived in the projects, but I wasn't truly of the projects. I wanted more. I wanted to move out. I made a commitment that I was not going to spend the rest of my life in the projects.
Around what time? Around how old would you say that you kind of made that commitment with yourself?
Probably around 11.
11?
Yeah, 11. I can remember just one evening just going to bed and laying in the bed, lights out, and just having a conversation with God and saying, man, it's hard. You could have gave up. You could have said, man, life ain't fair.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't one of those thoughts of ending life. It was about, what can I do to get out of this? So God, if you bless me, I promise you, this will be my payment back. That I'm gonna be a better father. I'm gonna be a better man. I'm gonna do better.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's how I was, and I was in the early 70s. Yeah.
So one thing I know that we, especially around this time, we're trying to really raise the awareness of social HIV, which stands for the hood infectious virus, which leads to AIDS, and that stands for addicted to incarceration and death syndrome.
Okay.
And so I know you came up right in the midst of that when those systems were put in place into
War
our
on
mud
drugs.
and war on drugs.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that was Ronald Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
or you know.
Mhm.
But I say all that to say, how do you think that affected your family? How did that weigh on you guys?
Well, I tell you, it was challenging because, you know, again, my mother who had issues, she was addicted to pills. Volumes is what they had to give her to help her with her issues. So, as a young man growing up, I mean, my grandparents were always there, but you imagine your mother just disappeared. And the question is, Grandma, where's Mom? And the answer was always, well, you know, she went to go see cousins, so she went out of town to see cousins. Actually, no, she had to go to the hospital to collect herself, to be assisted with her mental condition. So I knew when my mother was gone that she wasn't with relatives. She was sick. She was weak at the time. So volumes seemed to be the pill that she was addicted to. But then after that, it became marijuana. And as a young man, one of the things I always tell you, your environment, you can easily become a part of your environment. My environment was grown folks coming by, playing spades, passing a joint, getting high, talking stuff, and then after a while they say, oh, you know what, I got the munchies. So they're looking for something to eat. That was in my environment. So people don't understand that young minds see what's in their environment and feel that, oh, that's the way it should be, that's the way it is. Yeah. So by fourth grade, I can remember going to one of my friends' house in the neighborhood. His parents, who were very liberal, would leave and say, hey, we going to this party, and would give him 4 or 5 joints. Say, here you go, you know. And I'm spending the night. So what do? We do what happens in our environment. That's what grown folks do. Man, we got 4 joints, let's smoke them. So in 4th grade, you know, I was smoking weed with my friends. And then you realize, okay, after you smoke them, I'm thinking like, really? I mean, I don't feel no different. What are people saying this? Then we look, hey man, I got the munchies, because we hear grown folks saying we got the munchies. So I was exposed to marijuana at a young age, at 4th grade, and I realized that
it wasn't for you.
This is definitely not for me.
Yeah.
So, but that was my environment.
Right.
And but then when at that point I had lost my grandfather, and I started thinking like, do you really want to remain here where you are? Because this is mice, roach infested, and it's a life that do you truly want to live this the rest of your life? And I made a decision right then that I didn't want to do that. I became more of a loner in some cases. I mean, I enjoyed basketball, I enjoyed sports, even though I didn't know how to play them well at that time. But I just watched my environment, and my environment was rough. By the age of 6, man, I probably had about 4 or 5 guns pulled on me.
Dang.
You know, just walking down the street, dudes turn around and pull a gun in your face. But there's only one time that I was really frightened in the high-rise 501 building. We were playing, and the older guys chase you and beat you down sometimes, and it was like fun during the summertime. I never forget, I ran up on this older white lady and scared her, startled her. She pulled out her gun. I never forget, that gun was pointed dead at my face. But the difference in the way that brother pointed the gun at me and then when that white lady pointed at me, she was so frightened that the gun was just shaking and her finger was right on the trigger. And I'll never forget, I'm backing up saying, I'm sorry. Because that weapon could have easily went off and killed me right then. And she allowed me to walk away. But that was the environment. That was the environment that so many of us lived in. But I realized one thing, that exposure for me was the key to me getting out. I could have stayed within that 4-block radius and remained in that and trapped in it. But someone pulled me out of it and showed me something different. And once I had opportunity to see different things, then I was able to make different choices. And that opened up my whole world.
Right.
And that was my next question. So after growing up in those type of environments and in that type of family structure, at what point, once you get into high school, did you start to see like, man, I want to do something different. I want to go to college. I want to go to Jackson State. I want to do these different things
Right.
and change the trajectory of my family and
Right.
myself.
Right.
At what point, like, what was that? What flipped that switch for you?
I had two sets of friends, two sets. I mean, I tell you, my best friends, the ones that didn't mind correcting me if I was doing something wrong. That truly is a friend. And Cleo Washington and Michael Poole.
Shout out to Coach Poole.
Yeah.
Cool for sure.
I mean, I met Michael Poole in 4th grade at Oliver Elementary School. And Michael was kind of going through the same thing I was going through, but one thing about Michael, he had a stepfather that I always thought was his dad. And one thing about me, I observe people around me. And looking for a positive role model, you look for those guys. You look for those guys that you kind of feel like, man, they're doing all the right things. So Michael Poole's father, because he did raise him, I looked up to him. I looked up to guys who were around him because they seemed to be family men that cared for their families and worked and wanted more for their families. So I had two sets of friends. I played basketball, so one of the things I really believed in was taking care of my body, not smoking, not doing the drinking and things like that. But I think when I got to high school, I got injured, and it was basically a career-ending injury. I couldn't play anymore, and I was depressed.
Yeah.
Young men get depressed, and that's one thing we don't realize, that somewhere along the line we have put up this facade that we're strong and powerful, but we're dealing with issues, and we need to have someone that can help us get out of that phrase.
For sure.
So I'll never forget, I had a couple guys I was on the basketball team with. Mind you, again, my family was very poor. We never owned a car. So you got to your destination, either you walked, you ran, you took the bus, or you jumped the train, okay? And I can remember many years jumping the train to get to one side of the town to the other. Going across the trestle, going to the YMCA, making sure I can't jump off now, I'm over the river. so you made those decisions, but we never owned a car, so I wanted to hang out. I wanted to go to the all-night Ys and things like that.
Yeah.
So the two guys I played basketball with, they said, "Hey, AD, you can hang out with us, but if you hang out with us, you gotta do two things, man. What was that? Man, you gotta smoke some weed with us, and you gotta drink some beer." And I kid you not, I was down at this point because of the state of mind I was in.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I did that with them for 4 weeks. I can tell you, 4 weeks was it. Every Friday, Saturday night, we somewhere. We'll go up to Last Stop Liquor, hang out in the parking lot, get some old dude that's going to the cop, say, you know what, if you can give us a case of old English 800, you can keep the change. Man, probably 90% of the people had no problem with it. The other 10 would straight up tell you, man, I'm not doing that for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And I respected that. But the ones who got it, we cop, we go to the park, drink our beer. And I never get the dude that was with it, he always pull out his wallet, 2 joints. And he had this ritual when he always said, I got the fire herb, y'all. We sit there and we were smoking and all like that. But you gotta understand, man, I had morals. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I did it. And on that fourth weekend, what broke me of it, Junior, was We went to All Night Y in Elkhart. And I was in Upward Bound, my senior year in Upward Bound, and this beautiful girl that lived in Elkhart, I thought she was so beautiful. I never stepped to her because I didn't have the confidence.
Yeah.
But she came over and she had a friend with her that really wasn't that attractive. And she so happened to have the same last name as one of the guys I was with. And we, hi and stuff like that. And I looked at her and said, man, that's your ugly ass cousin. and started laughing. But it's just the three of us. And Wendy happened to come over and introduce her. Zena was her name. And introduced Zena to us. And she said, hey, I want you to meet Zena. Back then, we shook hands. And when Zena, the other two guys were more seasoned at smoking, me, I'm the new guy smoking, So you laugh and you get the giggles, it's hard for you to stop. Well, when I reached out to shake her hand, I started laughing. And I laughed and I couldn't stop. And in my mind, I'm telling you, my mind was telling me, Anthony, stop laughing at this girl. Stop laughing at her. Get control of yourself. I couldn't. And she said, she looked at Wendy and said, he's laughing at me, ain't he? Quote unquote, I can hear it like it was yesterday. And I felt so bad that I destroyed that girl's self-esteem, and that wasn't my purpose, because I wasn't that type of guy. So when I got home that night, that Sunday morning, the first thing I did, I picked up the phone and I called both of them. The guys I was hanging with, I said, hey man, look, check this out. I ain't down with that no more. I'll see y'all later, man, we cool, blah, 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 blah. I called one, I called the other, said the same thing. Hey Reese, man, I'm not doing that no more, man. What I did last night was embarrassing. I hurt that little girl, and man, I ain't down with it. And when I went to school Monday, hey, what's up? What's going on? We dap it up. Friday, we going our separate ways because I ain't down with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and then the thought came to mind, the prayer I had to God. What I was doing, was that going to get me out of the projects? Because at this time I lived in LaSalle Park Homes. I said, is this going to get me out of the projects? Is this going to get me to where my goals are? And I realized that it wasn't. So I cut those friends. And I hung out with my friends that were focused on trying to be successful in life.
Yeah.
So I surrounded myself with that.
So would you say that was the deciding factor from that state of mind to you? I want to go to college.
Yeah.
When I wanted to sing. Upward Bound was probably one of the programs that really changed me. Upward Bound and basketball really changed my life and gave me a new surrounding and exposed me to different environments.
Yeah.
I had never been out of South Bend. Matter of fact, I still tell the story, man, where after elementary, I went to Central Middle School in 7th grade.
Downtown?
Yeah.
That was middle school too?
Yeah, it was middle school.
Okay.
And when I got into 7th grade, they put me in a remedial math class. Remedial. When back then we called it special ed or the MALK class. And your friends would tell you and let you know, man, you in the MALK class. And I never forget, I had to advocated for myself. Because I was in this class and I was doing too well in it. I was getting straight A's in the class. So I went to the teacher and said, man, you know what? The motivation was, it was too easy. 2, I'm tired of my friends talking about me, okay? 3, you got a chart on the board that every 100 you get, you put a star down like we in the elementary, and whoever got the most stars at the end of the year won a prize. Well, it was too easy. So he said, well, Anthony, take another couple tests. Boom, A's. I'm sitting to the principal. The principal said the same thing. Take a couple more tests. Boom, straight A's. He finally took me out of that class and put me into the regular math class. Soon I walked in, y'all know how brothers are. Man, what you doing in here? Man, you in that special ed math class. I'm getting talked about the whole 9,
Yeah.
But my teacher gave me homework. I went to home, I did it, come back, we graded it, and I got 100 on it. So she made a comment to the class, you know, Notre Dame is having a math contest. The top 2 students in the 7th grade will represent the school, and we have 1 alternate. So, all right, cool. We all took the test. She pulled me out of class and said, you know what, you got the 2nd highest score in the 7th grade. You're gonna represent us at Notre Dame. Man, my response, because the first trip I took out was to Canton, Ohio for a flag football championship, national championship, which we won. Very first time I ever left South Bend, Indiana, on a Greyhound bus going to Canton, Ohio. This time I said, man, I get to go out of town again. You hear me? I don't know if you heard that. I get to go out of town again.
Yeah.
I'm going to Notre Dame, Indiana.
Yeah.
Dang.
Okay?
Yeah.
I live in South Bend.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know Notre Dame was in South Bend.
Yeah.
Because my environment was just that close. It's the furthest I went from the projects over here in the housing authority was the State Theater. That's the furthest east I went in South Bend.
Wow.
So my environment was Notre Dame. When you hear Notre Dame, Indiana, we're in Notre Dame, Indiana playing football, you kind of feel like, man, where is Notre Dame, Indiana? That was 7th grade. I didn't know Notre Dame was in South Bend. So my world was closed to a point, but my hunger wanted more.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes me to the point of what can I do to open up young men's eyes that my grandparents and my mom did the best they could. Wherever we lived, they gave us the best that they could, okay? It was my responsibility to make it better. Not that I'm better, but I can make it better than what you gave me because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Carry that torch.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
So, fast forward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You get to Jackson State.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
And let's talk about that phase of your life, going into adulthood, manhood.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about some lessons learned and even stress the importance of undergraduate education
Yeah.
and getting out of South Bend, what you already been hitting on.
Right.
So let's talk about that.
Upward Bound turned my life around as far as getting the direction of going on to get a further my education.
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't do very well on SATs because wasn't exposed to it. Didn't know how to take the test. And me and Cleo Washington, Michael Poole. I mean, he was good. I don't know what his SAT scores were, but I know me and Cleo's SAT scores. So we, when we took the test, man, we kind of figured like, man, you got to answer every one of these questions. You can't skip not one question. You got to answer every one of them.
Yeah.
And after we answered them, then we got our test scores. I think I scored like a 760, and Cleo here probably 750. But we had already applied to colleges. He applied to Wabash. He got accepted to Wabash. I applied to 3 schools. That was it. I applied to Charles Martin introduced me to Jackson State. He showed me a video of it, and I fell in love with it. I said, man, you know what? I'm going to apply. I applied. I applied to Jackson State. I applied to Ball State, and I applied to IU. But I didn't want to go on the groups program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just said, you know what? I'm going to apply to IU, and I got accepted to all 3. But the one I chose to go to was Jackson State because it was predominantly black. It was in the South. It was in Mississippi. I had family there that I never met on my father's side. So I chose to go to Jackson State University.
Okay.
And when I went there, it was such a rewarding environment where, yes, it was predominantly black, and yes, it was when you walked into every building, there was black leadership from the president to the department heads, the senior officers. All these were black men and black women that took ownership in your development.
Yeah.
And they taught you leadership. So yeah. And what an environment for me, and I thrived in it. But one thing happened, traumatic in my life at that point. My oldest brother, I'll never forget, guys, and I joined the fraternity, Omega Psi Phi fraternity, which was great for me. The brotherhood was strong for me, and they were there, and they were there for me. I'll never forget going to a frat party, coming back that night, knowing I had to work in the morning at the front desk. I was an RA, and man, went to bed. It was so strange. My window probably was just cracked a little bit, but man, this wind came in my room as though like it was a tornado outside, and it knocked down a picture on my nightstand. I got up that morning. I went straight, got myself together, you know, cleaned myself up, and went to work at the front desk. My boss came, allowed me to go get breakfast. I came back. He said, "Hey, your mother called." I said, "Okay, well, we'll call back." Call back. It's my brother. So I'm expecting it was going to be news. If it was sad news, it probably was going to be that my grandmother passed, all right? But I wasn't prepared to hear that my oldest brother passed. Mm-hmm. We're a year apart. Devastated my world. Oh man, I was not prepared for that. I packed my bags. I packed my bags right then and said, you know what? I'm going home. I'm going home.
So were you already in the fraternity at the time?
Yeah, I was in the fraternity. Man.
What year were you?
This is my spring semester of my sophomore year. Okay. My mother called me and she said, "Hey, I need you to call your dad because I'm gonna give you $50 to come home. Bus was probably $100 round trip, maybe. I can't remember. I know I needed $100. I know that. So I called my dad and I told him, "Say, man, you know what? I lost my brother. My brother died. I gotta get home. I gotta get home. I already got my Foot Lockers out. You know, people would talk me out and wait a minute, you know." But my dad said, "Okay, I'm gonna call you. I'll call you tonight." He called me that night to tell me that I can get you $50. You gotta get it somehow. I ain't got it. Yeah. After that, I didn't talk to that dude for at least 3 years. Well, I didn't meet him until I was 8th grade. Anyway, 8th going to 9th grade. So my fraternity brothers, my dean of men, he called me, his frat brother. He called me and he said, "Hey," I'll never forget, he said, "Look, I'm sorry to hear about your brother. You gotta get home, take care of your mom, bury your brother. Here's a round trip ticket to get home, and come on back." Just like that. Well, and that's what I did. You know, when I got back home, I realized that, man, life just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
You know? So I had made a decision after that semester. I said, I got accepted to 2 schools. I said, I got accepted to Ball State, I got accepted to IU. I said, I'm taking this year, I'm going back home, I'm not coming back. That was my plan. And I went back. Ball State was on quarters at the time. And some bad decisions. I went to Ball State. Didn't work out well there. I mean, not academically, but just the environment. Mm-hmm. So I left and I went to IU for a semester. And it was totally different. Attending a black college and then going to a secular school, it's such a culture shock. Yeah. At IU, I can remember walking down the street going to class. There's a large campus anyway, and you see the white young men driving down their car, and they see you, and next thing you know, they're making monkey sounds, and you know, you being called nigger and stuff like that. That was some exposure we never got at Jackson State, right? You know. Yeah. But I realized where I was. I was close to Martinsville, and this is Bloomington, and it's a different environment. So you know, I told my grandmother, I said, you know, I think you guys are gonna be all right. I'm going back to Mississippi. And that's what I did. Yeah. It was just one of those challenging things. But the one thing about it, the step for me in manhood, as we talk about this, my freshman year, I knew my parents couldn't afford to send me money. I got $20 a month. That's what they were able to send me. That gave me the opportunity to cut my hair, get my hygiene stuff. That was it. But they could barely send me that. So when I came back after my freshman year, I was going back my sophomore year, I sat my mother and grandmother down and said, hey, look, don't send me any more money. Y'all can't afford to send me the $20 you sending me a month. Don't send me any more money. And if I make it, I make it. If I fail, I fail. But I'm going to do it on my own. And that was the last time they sent me money. So I made a choice right then that, hey, life got to start with me.
Yeah.
And I had to make those decisions.
So let's talk about BLT.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from? What was the criteria for getting young men into the program? Let's talk about our deepest fear.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that as well.
Wow, wow, man, wow. Let's see. The founding of BLT happened in 2007, 2000. I can't go back to the year. All I know is that we went down to Indianapolis to watch your sister play in the state championship game.
Okay.
All right. My son, a young man named Thomas Davis, that went to
TD.
Yeah, that went to the same school, Holy Cross, with my son. As we coming back, you know, we're talking, having a discussion. I said, you know what? I realized that you find out that a lot of ladies have book clubs where they get together, they read a book, they discuss it, they socialize, and it's an intellectual discussion.
Yeah.
And I talked to them, and we was talking about it, and they said, you know, well, maybe we should do a book club. And that started BLT. And it was about bringing young men together, and parents who wanted their young men to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what young dude at that time was, man, read a book, you know, like that.
Yeah.
But the concept was to, let's read the book, and we discuss the book. Then afterwards, when we go out and eat, break bread together, and then we go and have a social event where we could get out and just play and laugh and joke with each other. And knowing that it's going to be an environment where it's not going to be too aggressive, where someone's going to bully someone, and you're able to be you and develop you. Because eventually, at that age where I had you guys, I wanted you to build your confidence to the point that when you got to that next level, like in high school, when I got to high school, and were some bad decisions that I made, you're going to be so strengthened when you get to high school that you're going to be making the decisions.
Yeah.
No one's going to be forcing you to make the bad decisions. Yeah, you're going to make some mistakes, but you're not going to make the mistakes that are going to be career-ending or life-altering. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to grow from the mistakes that you make.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So BLT became it,
And for those that don't know, BLT stands for Black Leaders of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Black Leaders of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we did do it at Key Bank. I remember.
Around the board table.
We're on the board
The
table.
board table.
Leather seats.
Leather seats.
Oh yeah,
We did
man.
big.
It was always something that to show you guys those were the deals were made. And
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar deals.
Yeah.
You guys were at those tables.
Yeah.
At that time, we were like 7 o'clock in the evening, but believe me, at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, there was $1 million deals being made at that table.
Yeah.
You know, and you guys look good at that table.
Man.
I mean, that was the exposure that I got when I went to Canton, Ohio. I mean, that was different exposure like that. And then, you know, you learn how to tie a tie.
Yeah.
Man.
But then
Yeah.
I don't know how I picked that poem our deepest fear. But you know something? In that poem, it told a story. Because you guys understand from going to high school and you see those guys who are struggling with making those decisions or making those friends, and they realize like, man, hey, dude, you don't have to do that for somebody to be your friend.
Right.
You know, why are you shrinking? Why are you bringing yourself to a low level to be accepted when you could be at another level and bring people up with you?
Right.
Okay. And that was a difference. And you know, seeing you guys develop, bringing you all together. I mean, and my son was in it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I looked at every one of y'all as being my son. Even your parents gave me that authority to be that guy, that one that could reiterate, strengthen what they were telling you. But you hear it from someone other than your parent, because sometimes we choose not to want to really listen to our parents. They've been telling us things to do all our life. But man, they knew that they wanted their kids around an environment, a group of men that were focused on being successful.
Yeah.
You know.
And as we wrap up, speaking of Key Bank, I just kind of want you to touch on how you rose. I know now that you transfer, but
Yeah.
to a different bank institution or a credit union. But how was it rising in a male-dominant industry or
White male dominant.
white male-dominant?
Yeah. Yeah.
How was that? How was that for you? And how was that fight? How was that climb?
I tell you this, and I think we always got to go back to manhood, okay? Because that step wasn't easy. When here I am, a college-educated black man, and when I came home, by this time I'm ready to get married. I'll never forget asking Rachel's father for a hand in marriage, and he asked me if I had a job. At that time I was working a summer job out at Upward Bound. I told him that. He said, no. He said, no. I'm talking about, do you have a job? I said, no. He said, well, when you get a job, you come back. And at that point, I found a job because I wanted this woman to be my wife.
Yeah.
They had a management trainee position open, a couple of them. But then I realized that those jobs are only for certain people. So when those jobs were filled, I never forget that there were two white counterparts that got them. Well, we got this teller position for you, which was entry level. At that point, hey, you know what? Okay, I need a job.
Yeah.
Right.
But when I took that job, I never forget, I told my manager, I said, hey, understand this. I said, I'm looking to move upwardly. So whatever you could teach me to help me move up, I'm more than willing to learn. I could sit on that teller line, man, cashing people's checks all day, and you look at lunchtime, and you see the two guys that are in management training program, they're going to lunch with the president and senior vice presidents. They're going to lunch with them. So I was very envious. I said, man, that could be me. You know, why not me? So I worked my way. I worked my way up from entry level. I never forget I went into one position, and I was in that position probably a month. You know, sometimes, you know, you joke with the people around you. So I was, you know, teasing one of the guys, happened to be a young white man. I said, hey man, I need you to move this there and that there and that there. And he straight up told me, he said, man, I'm not your nigga. Whoa.
At work.
Yeah, at work. Young white lady right there that's in an interracial relationship heard him say it. So I could have done two things. I could have went back to my project days and popped him dead in his mouth and whooped him right there. But something in my mind told me, you know how difficult it was for you to get this job? You got a wife you got to take care of, you know?
Yeah.
And what about your family? So I realized that, back off. You can get them after work. You know, that was my attitude.
Mhm.
My attitude was more like, okay, no, but I kept you after work, and I'm gonna see if you gotta say that then. But no, I never did anything. I did the right thing by saying, dude, man up. You know this world, you know what you're gonna be dealing with. So as I moved up, I never forget going to businesses that I had authority over, because you know we had what we call floor plans. We give them so much money to go out and buy inventory to sell. I never forget, I went to this business right down on 31, and every month we had to go check and see if they had our merchandise. If they didn't have it, you got to pay for it. You know, give me a check right now, or I'm going to have to write you out of compliance, and that's not good. And I never forget, this lady told me, she said, her husband was helping me, very nice guy, I mean, very respectful. Mr. Douglas, what can I do for you, blah, 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 blah. Well, we couldn't find this item, which happened to be about $80,000. As I got ready, she said, she stepped out and just basically told me, hey, look, we're not gonna cater to your every need. I said, well, that's fine. I said, either you can write me a check or I have to write you out of compliance. No, what you're gonna do is leave our lot. Okay, no problem. You know, I just have to write out of compliance, and I left. The husband opened the door for me, and she turned to the husband and said, I want that effing nigger on our lot again. And I turned around and said, look, I said, I came on your lot, I was Mr. Douglas. I said, now I'm the effing nigger? Okay. Got in my little car, man, drove back downtown on 31. Man, my butt didn't touch that seat at all. I was so mad. But then I walked into my office, and the assistant manager, when I got ready to tell him what happened, he stopped me mid-sentence. I already heard. I said, you heard already? I said, well, who told you? Oh, she told me. I said, then you heard her side of the story. You didn't hear mine. So that was the challenging part of it. But again, I could have went another route with it. But I realized at this point, I got a family.
Right.
You know, and you have to, as a man, endure some things that you don't want to endure to take care of your family. It's already difficult for us as black men to get those doors open to us. Now when you're there, how do you handle it?
Yeah.
So it was difficult, but I persevered. I'm not the first one to ever have to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that there are ways around it, but you always think about what's going to be the consequence of what your actions. And I could have just went ballistic, but then when I got back, where was I going to go? Where's my mortgage going to be paid for? So we have to, as black men, we realize that there are certain things that we have to put up with and persevere. But I'd rather know where a person stands when it comes to race than have someone who's smiling in my face, and when I turn my back, they're doing something differently to harm me.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I just want to thank you
oh, man.
for persevering and doing the things that you did to get over those hurdles or climb over those mountains and able to get back to us and put us in a position to where we're better off because of you. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Man, well, you're welcome, man. I'm glad I had a part in it.
Yeah.
You know, and just be strong black men. Boy, I mean, you focus on making your life better. But one thing I truly believe is lifting as you climb, because you got a lot of young men that are younger than you that are looking for someone to direct them on what they need to do in their life. What changes can I make? And you guys have been exposed to so much that you have a roadmap within yourself that all you gotta do is give it to them and say, hey, I'm here if you have any questions. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, your legacy is how you leave this world before you leave it. I mean, I tell my son and daughter and their friends, I say, you know what? leave it better than what you found it. If you leave it better than what you found it, then you made progress. But yeah, you know, lift them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, thank you.
yeah, man, much love, man. You guys know I love y'all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would just say thanks for sticking with us again another week, and be on the lookout for a financial class sponsored by Minds of the Mud with Mr. AD. That's all we got for you.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.